After my abduction, my entire family felt a sense of relief. The captors had mistaken me for someone else, allowing my sister, who was their intended target, to escape. When the authorities finally rescued me, I was covered in blood, but I remained silent and composed. I had developed emotional numbness, feeling nothing at all. Nothing around me could make me feel sad anymore. Surprisingly, I felt more relaxed than ever before. However, my family soon regretted this change and pleaded with me to return to my former self. Upon my release and return home, the house was deserted. No one was there, and not a single piece of furniture remained. I couldn't contact my family, so I reached out to the housekeeper, only to learn that they had relocated. Following their new address, I found them all gathered around the dinner table, ready to eat. When they saw me, everyone appeared slightly uncomfortable. "Why did you move without telling us?" they asked. My mother explained casually, as if discussing dinner plans. "Your sister has been experiencing nightmares about being kidnapped, so we thought the house might be haunted and decided to move. Your sister is more susceptible, but you arrived just in time. Have a seat and join us," they invited, placing my sister's favorite dishes on the table. I walked in with thick bandages on my face and a limp, but no one seemed to care. I used to feel sad about such things, but now I felt nothing. I had lost my emotions. As I sat quietly, Emma leaned closer. "I've been too afraid to go out lately, so I didn't visit you. Our parents were worried you might be kidnapped too, so they stayed home with me. Are you upset with me, Ava?" Before I could respond, my father intervened. "It's okay, you two are sisters. You should understand each other." I didn't know how to react. I was the one who had been kidnapped. Emma laughed heartily. "Ha ha ha, I didn't want Ava to overthink. I was the one kidnapped." I didn't want Ava to worry. She placed a shrimp on my plate. But Ava has always been so strong and independent. I admired fearless people. I quietly set my chopsticks down. I'm allergic to shrimp, and no one at the table seemed to remember. My name is Ava, born on July 7th. My sister is Emma. We are genuine sisters. A fortune teller once predicted that I had a dark fate and shouldn't be raised by our parents. Consequently, they sent me to live with my grandparents in the countryside. They rarely visited me. After my grandparents passed away, they finally brought me back home. I returned with high hopes, but quickly realized this place no longer felt like mine. On the day I was kidnapped, Emma had insisted we take a deserted alley and then decided she needed to find a restroom on her own, telling me to wait there. That's when I lost consciousness. I'll never forget that moment. The kidnappers had mistaken me for my sister. Since my family didn't pay a ransom, they received nothing. I endured starvation and torture for 3 days. My voice was hoarse from screaming, yet no sound emerged. When the police stormed in, the kidnappers were about to strip me. Blood blurred my vision, but I struggled to see. No family members appeared. I wanted to cry, but no tears came. The doctor diagnosed me with PTSD and emotional numbness. After the investigators left, no one visited my hospital room. At dinner, my family acted as if I wasn't there, chatting happily like a perfect family. I used to try to engage in these conversations, but today I did nothing. "I'm done," I said, grabbing a napkin to wipe my hands. "Where should I stay?" My mother was startled, then remembered, "We haven't arranged the rooms." Emma quickly defended our parents, implying I was being unreasonable, something she often did. "Ava, you can't blame Mom and Dad. They've been really busy." I responded, "Did I say I blamed them?" I gently placed down the napkin, my tone flat. "I'll just take an empty room. Enjoy your meal." I slowly went upstairs, overhearing my parents talking. "Where did she get that sharp tongue from?" they wondered. "Emma, don't take it personally. Here, Mom made some soup for you." Emma followed suit. "Maybe she's just scared." Mom disagreed. "What is there to be scared of? Didn't she come back just fine?" I shut the door, blocking out their conversation. Later, Oscar returned home. He wasn't a biological Smith. Our parents had adopted him. Emma and I called him brother. I used to dream of having an older brother to protect me. Oscar was everything I imagined a good brother would be, except his protection was solely for Emma. Towards me, the newcomer drawing his beloved sister's attention, he was hostile. He didn't even glance my way as he entered, exuding unwelcoming vibes. How could I have been so oblivious back then? Despite his attitude, I tried to win him over by being caring and giving him gifts. I envied Emma for all the love she received, but with all those feelings gone, their behavior seemed fake and dull, and I felt a bit hungry. Oscar noticed I hadn't spoken to him and gave me a second look. Hey, your stuff. I don't want it. He handed me a neatly wrapped gift bag. I knew it was the birthday present I had given him, a jade pendant I had carved myself. I had given him many things, each returned publicly. He and Emma enjoyed belittling me. Got it, I replied, diverting my attention elsewhere. Even though the dishes were ready, I had no appetite. A whole table of seafood, none of which I could eat. Just looking at it made my injuries hurt. Oscar seemed surprised. Usually, I would beg him to accept a gift. Was this a new tactic to get the family's attention? Hey, Oscar, what did Ava send? Emma asked eagerly, beginning to unwrap the gift. Wow, a beautiful jade pendant. It looks like Ava put a lot of thought into this. You should just accept it, Oscar. Oscar pursed his lips. Accept it? That would mean accepting her, the same person who caused countless sleepless nights for Emma, making her feel insecure. No way, I'm not accepting it. Take it back, he said firmly, looking at me. I was starving, with a stomach ache from hunger, staring at the seafood I couldn't eat, just wanting to leave for something else. As I stood up, Oscar grabbed my wrist, thinking I was avoiding the issue. Take your stuff and go. Emma watched the scene unfold with a smirk, expecting tears as usual. Toss it, I said. What? When no one reacted, I took the jade pendant and threw it in the trash. If you don't need it, throw it away. I'm leaving. The table went silent. This version of me was unfamiliar to them. I didn't care and left. Oscar felt uneasy watching my frustrating silhouette fade away, as if something inside him had lost control. Emma glanced at Oscar, gripping her chopsticks tightly. I went out and had a satisfying meal. When I returned home, my parents were waiting in the living room. Come over, we need to talk, my father said. I had a feeling about what they were going to say. Since I came back, we barely interacted except when they wanted to push me into arranged relationships. Wealth tends to circulate within a small circle, and connecting with other affluent families is common. They didn't want Emma involved since she and Oscar had feelings for each other, so they had delayed these plans. But with me back, their issues were resolved. The less favored daughter, fitting to be a pawn. Ethan, the youngest son of the Carter family, is back from overseas. You two are about the same age. Maybe you could meet up, have a meal, and chat, my mother added. We were really worried when you got into trouble. If there's someone to protect you, we'd feel more at ease. I've always declined these setups. Rich kids often lead flashy, messy lives. My parents never truly cared about my well-being, which hurt for a long time. But now whatever, if meeting him gets them off my back, fine. When they found out, I nodded. Sure? When do I meet him? Surprised by my quick agreement, their prepared speeches were in vain. Both froze for a moment before my father continued. Tomorrow at noon at a restaurant owned by the Carter family group. It's fine if nothing comes of it. They aren't just any wealthy family. I nodded again, and silence settled in. Anything else? No, nothing. I stood up and headed upstairs, swift and determined. My parents exchanged a look, seeing complicated feelings in each other's eyes. She's been acting strange. Hope she isn't planning something. I'll have the butler keep an eye on her. Make sure she doesn't cause trouble. She'd do well to be as sensible as Emma. How could she compare to the daughter we raised ourselves? I chuckled lightly. True. Only Emma is the real daughter, I thought as I met Ethan that afternoon. Ethan was leaning against the car window, lighting a cigarette, though he wasn't actually smoking. He disliked smoking but needed the image it created. After letting it burn out, he tousled his hair and got out of the car. Just as I was watching, a boy too handsome to be real, he unbuttoned a couple of shirt buttons and slouched into a chair. Hey, are you Ethan? I greeted him. Yeah, and you must be Ava? Ethan hesitated. Heard you've turned down a lot of people. I wouldn't say turned down. I've just never met them. He suddenly laughed. Well, then I'm honored. What's your take on arranged marriages, Ava? What's there to think about? I'm just a pawn, doing what my family wants. The kidnapping hadn't been widely discussed, but Ethan surely knew. He looked at me meaningfully. Ava, you're a lot like me. He raised his glass to toast. I pushed mine aside. No thanks. I'd rather eat first. Ethan paused, then leaned on his elbow, chuckling softly. All right, let's eat then. I sighed, thinking I was about to meet a simpleton, but he turned out to have more depth than I expected. After finishing the meal and parting ways with Ethan, I received messages from my parents. They were thrilled. The Carter family was impressed and wanted a quick marriage. I had miscalculated. I just wanted to find a naive guy to play along with, keeping my parents from pushing me into more dates. But now, I had dug my own hole with Ethan. I wasn't emotional, but I clearly should have been more concerned. Knowing the Carters really liked me kept Emma on edge. She believed she had me figured out in everything, and Oscar was unconditionally on her side. But if I actually tied myself to the Carters, her sense of superiority would disappear. When I got home, my parents looked visibly stressed. No longer the excited tone they had in their messages. Emma was ill. Oscar, who was supposed to travel, canceled his flight to stay by her side. I asked why and learned that Emma had been plagued by nightmares. The household felt like a funeral, but it was just some restless sleep. I remember the day I was discharged from the hospital. It felt like transitioning from one extreme to another. Ava, every time Emma sees you, she thinks about almost getting kidnapped. She can't eat, can't sleep. If I remember right, I was the one who got kidnapped. Should I be angry? I don't know. My heart feels calm. Just a painful throb in my head. But you're okay, right? Emma's different. She's timid because she never went through anything like this. Maybe you should stay somewhere else for a bit, my mother chimed in. I glanced at the tightly shut door on the second floor. Emma was telling me that no matter what, no matter how hard I tried, Mom and Dad would always favor her unconditionally. Got it. I headed upstairs. My mother was worried. What are you doing? Emma hasn't slept well for days. She finally fell asleep. Don't wake her up. I sighed, speaking lightly, packing my things. Aren't I leaving? My mother opened her mouth but didn't say anything. I quickly came downstairs with a suitcase. Not much to take, the same way I returned from the countryside. I'm leaving today with these things. They had been packed away in the suitcase for a while. Everyone reacted differently, seeing how decisive I was. I have an apartment nearby you can stay at, Oscar said, placing a key on the table while getting a drink of water. My parents seemed surprised. After all, Oscar was the only one who never gave me any slack in this house. Oscar wasn't sure why he did it, but seeing my small figure alone with a little suitcase, he suddenly didn't want me to leave. But Emma would be scared, so this seemed like a fair compromise. Don't mess with the stuff inside. Don't bring people over. No pets or plants either. And no need. I already booked a hotel, I interrupted. Oscar looked a bit taken aback, not expecting me to refuse. If this had been before the incident, I'd probably have been thrilled. But if it had been before, Emma wouldn't have used this excuse to get rid of me, and Oscar wouldn't casually let me stay at his place. It was an unsolvable puzzle. Oscar visibly wasn't happy, thinking I was being ungrateful. You sure know how to leave quickly? I didn't react to his sarcasm, dragging the suitcase outside and staring at the keys for a long time. Oscar abruptly slammed them into a drawer. Emma sensed something was off. Everyone at home seemed distracted. Oscar claimed he was working late and hadn't been home for days. And Mom and Dad, they'd sigh while eating. Liam, I've been feeling bloated these days. Can you make that healthy porridge you usually do? My mother asked, rubbing her stomach. Ma'am, that wasn't me. Emma tried to interrupt. But Liam spoke first. It was Miss Ava. She said she made it because she thought you wouldn't eat it otherwise. Mom's face showed several emotions before she finally spoke. Just make any porridge. I'm going to rest. Watching Mom leave, Emma followed Liam, determined to learn how to make porridge, nearly burning down the kitchen in the process. That night, there was no porridge. Mom ended up ordering takeout, hardly touching it before heading upstairs. Liam shared everything with me, plus Mom's favorite flowers, which I used to take care of. Emma tried right after I left, and they all died. The tea Dad loved, Turns out it was something I brought from the countryside and couldn't find anywhere else. Liam messaged me all these things. I knew he was trying to tell me my family needed me, but I was unmoved. Why didn't they notice any of this when I was around? Now they miss me, but I don't want to do these things anymore. I'd still suggest therapy. The doctor told me, your emotional responses, lack of interest, all these signs are concerning. Without intervention, it might develop into antisocial personality disorder. I looked him straight in the eye. Impressive. You know your stuff. Ethan adjusted his glasses. I'm in a good mood. Working seriously? I didn't expect to see him here for my follow-up. Maybe sensing my curiosity, Ethan explained generously, this hospital belongs to my family. I nodded. Silence filled the air. I thought for a moment, then spoke. I don't want therapy. As a doctor, I'll respect that decision, but as a friend, mind if I ask why? I wasn't sure what he meant by friend, but I didn't argue. I don't need all those emotions right now. They just make things harder. All right, Ethan scribbled on the diagnosis. All normal. His handwriting was elegant, matching his aura. If you ever need help, just reach out to me. Thanks. Seeing Oscar when I returned didn't surprise me. With the Smiths' resources, it wasn't impossible to find me. Surprised me. With the Smiths' resources, it wasn't impossible to find me. Ava, come home. Mom and Dad miss you. Oscar got straight to the point. I'm not going back. Why? Oscar seemed frustrated. Living in hotels isn't right. People might think our family is mistreating you. Aren't you? Oscar seemed to realize something and didn't look pleased. With no more words, I turned to grab some coffee across the street. Oscar followed. I tried to shake him off, picking up my pace. Watch out. Before I could react, a car hit me head on. Everything slowed down. Emma was driving. Her face was filled with hatred. I clearly saw her lips freeze. Oscar was rushing towards me from the corner of my eye. Then I blacked out. Oscar caught up, only to find me lying in a pool of blood. He couldn't believe it as he looked at the person in the driver's seat. Pain overwhelmed him. How could it be Emma? The surgery took 4 hours. Oscar sat on the waiting bench, half of his body going numb. Oscar, how is she? She's in surgery. I mean, how's Emma? Mom and Dad rushed over. She's in surgery. How is she? Emma is at the police station. Why didn't you go with Emma to get her out? She's never been in a place like that before. I need to contact someone. Oscar looked at his parents, worried about Emma. Memories flooded his mind. Tears fell unexpectedly. No wonder Ava didn't want to come back. Dad, Mom, Ava stayed in the countryside for 16 years, and we never visited her. The day before she returned, Emma suddenly got sick. She cried and said she was afraid we wouldn't love her anymore. We comforted her all night and missed picking Ava up. Later, Mom, when you went out to buy things for Ava, you found Emma crying secretly and gave everything meant for Ava to her. Mom was puzzled. What exactly are you trying to say? Oscar didn't reply, but mumbled to himself, how could I think Ava would take everything meant for Emma? We couldn't even treat them equally? The surgery light went off. I was wheeled out, with the anesthesia still wearing off. My mind foggy. I don't know how much time passed, but when I woke up, Dad, Mom, and Oscar were by my bedside. It was nothing like the last time I was in a hospital. I opened my mouth to call for Dad, but he spoke first. Ava, can you help Emma? Emma was taken back to the police station. She tried to flee after hitting me, and it was caught on camera. By law, she committed a traffic crime. That way, Emma wouldn't be in the wrong. The cold saline was flowing into my veins, sending chills through my body. You mean I got hit by your daughter, and I still have to help get her off the hook? Mom quickly approached, holding my other hand, seemingly startled by my cold touch. I know it's unfair, but Emma is still your sister. Once we get her back, you can scold her all you want, okay? I pulled my hand away, every joint in my body aching. Don't even think about it. Ava, not only will I not speak for her, I'm going to press charges myself. Mom stood up abruptly. Ava, you dare. Why all the noise? The patient needs rest. Those not concerned, please leave. Mom and Dad left without turning back. Oscar left one sentence behind. Don't mind what they said. You do what you need to. He hurried after them. I noticed he was tightly holding a jade pendant, the one I had thrown away when Oscar returned it on his birthday. The doctor approached me. Are you still in pain? Can you move? I snapped back. Is your hospital staff so short that the psychologist is handling the surgical ward? Ethan removed his mask, revealing his handsome face. Wow, not even a thank you for helping you get rid of them, and you're giving me attitude. What's with that temper? He moved closer, examining my face for a moment. At least your face is okay. Looks like you've been through a lot, just out of the hospital, and now you're back in. Are you secretly in love with me, finding excuses to come back? Maybe you should see a doctor for that. You're warm-hearted, caring about my health. He studied the medical chart for a while, then sighed. I know your injuries weren't too severe, but getting hurt consecutively surely isn't good for you. Get plenty of rest. Stay away from seafood and cold foods. So much trouble, I complained. Ethan didn't reply, only gave me a woeful look. Me? Ethan? What am I going to do with you? It wasn't until he showed up with a thermos that night that I realized what he meant. I had spent 2 days in the hospital, during which Ethan brought me food 3 times a day. He said he was doing his duty to save lives. Your sister was charged. I sipped my soup. You really care about her. I overheard your parents that day. This morning they got your sister out. I paused for a moment. And then I got her back in. That took me by surprise. What? That's what we worthless bastards do? Spending a fortune to please a lady. That I nearly forgot he was the young master of the Carter family. The Smiths wouldn't let her stay there for long. They'd find a way to get her out again. That's okay. I'll just put her back in, Ethan said lightly, as if it were a game. Hey, when's the trial? Need me to find you a good lawyer? I have a lawyer. Doesn't seem like your guy is up to it. Really don't need any help. I stirred the soup, pondering. Noah, my lawyer, was an old friend of my grandparents. All right, if you ever need help, call me. I'm a guardian angel in white, he said, but I didn't respond to his attempt at humor. Ethan wasn't an idiot. He must have his reasons for helping me. I voiced my suspicion as Ethan's smile faded slightly. Why do I need a motive? Can't I just help? I thought for a moment. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense that he seemed disappointed. All right, I have my reasons. What do you want from me? I didn't like owing favors. Ethan D. tidied up my empty dishes and winked at me. I'll tell you later. Soon it was time for the court case about the accident. On Emma's side, the Smith family arrived in full force, bringing along 2 lawyers. Quite the entourage. Noah, my lawyer, and I felt a bit out of place next to them. After the court ruled, it was time for the plaintiff's statement and the defendant's response. Emma's lawyer confidently claimed I had suicidal tendencies. The plaintiff grew up in the countryside, distant from her parents, while my client has a great relationship with her family. The plaintiff tried to mend her ties with the Smith family, but relationships take time. Eventually, she lost hope for family bonds and grew envious of my client, which led to extreme actions, even an attempt at suicide. This guy knew how to talk nonsense. It's true I was treated coldly by the Smiths, and feeling low would be understandable, but he didn't know that I wasn't the kind of person anymore who'd be upset over parental favoritism. I wasn't the kind of person who'd harm myself. I calmly replied. Your jealous mom and dad love me. That's why, Emma chimed in. I'm not. Yeah, right. I've seen you crying in secret at home. Emma was hell-bent on convincing everyone I was suicidal, spilling everything. She didn't notice how her words made the Smiths uneasy. I looked at the judge. I was diagnosed with emotional flatness last month. The room erupted in whispers. Everyone looked shocked. Jealousy, envy, sadness. I don't feel these. I have no reaction to how the Smiths treat me. Noah, my lawyer, intervened. Your Honor, we have evidence. The staff quickly brought over my medical report. I lowered my gaze. I got it arranged by Ethan yesterday. Ava, why didn't you tell us? Oscar was in pieces. You have no feelings, huh? No feelings. Emma laughed loudly. Order, the judge commanded. The case was straightforward. Proving I wasn't suicidal basically nails Emma for traffic violations. Emma shot me a venomous look, as if wishing to strangle me right there. In the end, she was sentenced to a year in prison, suspended for a year. Ava, you're really something, she spat. Even if she wouldn't actually serve time, she'd have a record. Compared to her, my parents' expressions were way more complicated. Ava, it's over. Let's put this behind us. Emma harshly tugged at Mom's arm, but Mom kept going. Every family has issues, and now Emma's been punished. Come home with me. My lawyer pulled out a document, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This is the cutoff agreement my client prepared. Please review and sign. Ava, what do you mean? Exactly what it says. I don't want to be your daughter anymore. Ava, we can work things out as a family. Let's not make rash decisions. Ava, whatever we've done wrong, we apologize, okay? Emma grabbed Mom. Mom, why are you doing this? If she wants to sever ties, let her. Shut up. Oscar barked as I took off my coat to reveal a backless top. My back was covered in scars. People gasped. Some were from the beating after the kidnapping, others from the accident. They all hurt in their own way. Ava. I couldn't care less about their expressions, focusing on the agreement. I've lost emotions, but I still feel pain. These scars ache on rainy days. I don't mind the favoritism or lack of love, but I won't suffer anymore for it. I've already signed, do it quickly. With that, I started packing to leave. Emma's eyes burned with hatred and a hint of excitement. You realize that without being a Carter, you'll be worthless. The Carter family won't take you in. I glanced at her. Isn't that what you wanted? You have Ava? Just wait and see. She smiled triumphantly, imagining me as an outcast. Noah went back and forth with the Smiths before Oscar decided they'd sign. Noah handed me the documents. There, I've done my duty by your grandparents. Focus on living well now, kid. Holding those light papers felt heavy, grounding me, making freedom possible. I'm no one's daughter, just me. The Carter family. The Smiths cut off Ava. I've set you up with someone from the White family. Meet her this weekend. Mason's father arranged. Mason frowned. I won't go. I'll marry no one but her. Then you're no son of mine. Fine by me. Mason walked out with a clear handprint on his cheek, but seemed relaxed. How'd it go? Great. The old man kicked me out. I'm free of shares, the company, everything. You can start your plan then. Congrats. I was Mason's legitimate reason to leave the Carter family. He had plans to bring them down while seeking vengeance for his mother, whom they'd wronged. You're ruthless. I noted that ever since Mason was a kid, he vowed to avenge his mom by gathering enough evidence to topple the Carters. He'd waited 20 long years. Now that Chairman Carter was aging, he was thinking about leaving him some shares. But he couldn't care less. He's only focused on taking down the Carter family. What? I'm just an innocent boy who ran away for love, Mason said, rubbing the right side of his face, tilting his head. Did you just laugh? Are you mocking me? No, you must be mistaken. I picked up my glass to hide my smile. You definitely laughed, boring. Hey, isn't boredom a kind of feeling? Right, get lost. I denied it out loud, but inside, I realized I might have shaken off some kind of restraint. All those lost emotions started to come back bit by bit. In less than a month, the Carter family crumbled. This giant that had been dominating the city for years suddenly collapsed, taking down a few other big families with it. That included the Smiths. Overnight, the company went bust. Factories shut down, houses got auctioned off. Once high and mighty tycoons became no different from regular folks. For ordinary people, it might have been nothing, but for those accustomed to a life of luxury, it was like falling from heaven to hell. Emma cried, wanting to keep those dresses and bags, and Mrs. Smith couldn't bear it. How about leaving her a few? Mr. Smith seemed 10 years older than a month ago. You think I want to, but if we don't auction these off, what are we going to use to pay the fines? The crippling fines for financial crimes, coupled with the company's bankruptcy, left the Smith family broke, unable to cover the debts. The Carter family was even worse off, with Mason showing no mercy. Oscar disappeared without taking anything with him. No one knew where he went. Before leaving, he sent me a message. Just 3 short words. I'm sorry. He got lucky, narrowly escaping the disaster. But luck only goes so far. Because yesterday, Mason found his address. For some reason, Mason seemed to hate the Smith family too. Ava! Emma spotted me, her voice piercing. What are you doing here? You jinx! Everything changed after you came home. I hate you. I hate you. Why aren't you dead? Mr. and Mrs. Smith hugged her tightly, covering her mouth. Their eyes held caution and a multitude of emotions I couldn't decipher. Do you need something? Came to see you all. Mrs. Smith's expression softened a bit. To see your downfall, I finished. Emma charged at me. Shut up, you witch! She rolled and crawled on the floor towards me, her parents struggling to hold her back. It was the first time I'd seen her in such a pitiful state. Mrs. Smith hesitated for a long time before finally speaking. I know you hate us. She was choking on her tears, unable to finish a sentence. Hate? Before the kidnapping, all I felt was sadness. After the kidnapping, I felt nothing. Now looking at them, I only feel sadness. After the kidnapping, I felt nothing. Now looking at them, I only feel relief. I was lucky not to grow up in such a family, lucky to have the best grandparents. You all take care of yourselves, I said, turning and getting into the Maybach parked by the road. The Smith family stood there, their eyes filled with complex emotions. Feeling happy? Satisfied? Feeling happy? Satisfied? Mason buckled my seatbelt. Meh, I guess. He leaned in and kissed me, and now I held up my hand. See this palm? I see it. It's feeling kinda itchy, I said, and my hand was about to come down when Mason grabbed it. You're so aggressive. I kinda liked you better when you had no emotions, no reactions. And now you're resorting to domestic violence, huh? Get lost.